I'm actually being with you from the thriving metropolis of Oakville, Ontario. I'm up here on business. And so my setup isn't what I normally have. So I'm hoping that everything goes according to plan. Anyway, we're going to start by just reminding everybody that for the next few sessions, we're going to be talking about procrastination. We're going to be drilling down on it. And what I'd like you to do is, rather than make this something that is just information, I'd like you to be making it about you. So if you, to any degree, live with procrastination, I want to remind you of a few things. That first of all, procrastination has been given a bad name. Many people think of it as a failure to do something or some kind of personal deficit, when in actual fact, procrastination and unconscious behavior choice, but it's done for self-protective reasons. And so it's actually something, not the best choice you have, but sometimes the only choice you can see. And sometimes you don't even realize it. I want to remind you that, like hoarding disorder, procrastination has two types. The first is adaptive. And adaptive procrastination is where you have and you live and you set for yourself high standards. You believe that your performance meets high standards most of the time. And when it doesn't, that's what you seek. That is your goal. The third point about adaptive procrastination is that you quite firmly believe that being successful is an essential element.
I can't hear the speaker.
In your identity. And that if you don't have a high enough degree of success, almost to the point of being a perfectionist, then that damages your self-perception and your self-esteem. The second type of procrastination is maladaptive. Now, maladaptive starts with standards that are, for most people or anyone realistically, those standards are too high. And you're often disappointed with yourself. That's not a good thing. That should be a tip-off. There's a gap between your standards and how you allow yourself to view your performance. You're rarely satisfied with yourself. You don't even entertain the concept that for some things, good enough is good enough. And you adhere rigidly and strictly and punitively to the adage, if something's worth doing well, if it's worth doing, it's worth doing right. There's another tip-off, that right is the standard all the time with anything that you set your mind to do. And you engage in a lot of self-criticism. And what that ends up doing is undermining your self-esteem and creating even just a chronic low level of dissatisfaction with yourself, which leads to depressed mood. There goes your energy. There goes your motivation to continue. Hence, procrastination becomes a friend. You also worry excessively about making mistakes. Now, last week, I asked everyone to have a look and do some homework on their personal variables for whatever level of procrastination you find yourself engaging in. And I just want to remind you of what those variables are, so that as we go through the new material, you can have a look at how those are triggering or affecting those variables we talked about. The variables being your feelings, your fears. Are you aware of fears? Your hopes, the memories that you drag up when you're experiencing challenges. Are they critical? Are they, I'm not good at things? Do they diminish you? Or do they give you a foundation for taking the risk of trying something new and pushing yourself beyond the safe limit? Your dreams, and I'm not talking about the dreams that you have at night. I'm talking about what you allow yourself to even hope for, to dream is possible. And your doubts. When you dream, do you have this check and balance system in your head, in your mind, where you think of something, you dream, you wish, you hope for something, and then that critic keeps kicking in? That says, yeah, but remember the last time you tried that. Well, you don't know much about that. Well, you're not that kind of person. Well, what would happen? Here are all the things that could go wrong. They're called doubts. And the pressures, the realistic pressures. We are all living under pressures every single day. And those pressures come and go. They increase, they decrease, they become friends. They become normal when we live with them long enough, and we don't dare to hope or believe in ourselves for more. The next thing we're going to talk about most today is about the different fears, the most three primary fears. They're not the only ones. We will talk about the others, but these are the biggies. These are the most common. And those fears are the fear of failure, the fear of success. Sounds ironic, but we're going to spend today talking about, is there any element of a fear of success that you live with, that you create for yourself? And the fear of being controlled. The number of people that I talked with last week who expressed after the last week's podcast where we just touched on this, they started to identify, the one thing I can say about myself for certain is that when somebody tries to make me do something or they try to influence me to do something, I am likely to do exactly the opposite. And we talked a little bit also about the fact that if you find yourself being susceptible to that, do you realize that you are actually already controlling yourself? Okay. By the fear of being controlled by others, you actually are putting control on yourself. And they are controlling you through that, because you become a reactive individual rather than a proactive individual. So our motto moving forward through this segment, and I would invite you to consider adopting it, at least considering adopting it, is live forward. All right? So let's apply this fear of failure, fear of success, fear of being controlled to clutter and to hoarding. In doing that, we're going to review a handout that Jim is going to post. It's the saving inventory. Now, I'm posting this so that you will have access to it. We will also put it on the resources section of hoarding.ca. But I just want to underscore for you that when clutter becomes an issue, which is what is bringing many of you here, sometimes even to the extent of qualifying as hoarding, sometimes even qualifying to the extent of hoarding disorder, although that is a continuum. On that continuum, there are basically 3 points where the problem can start to arise and you can get stuck. The first point is at acquisition or accumulation, the beginning of that continuum. And if that is the issue, either you are highly triggered, you are very susceptible, you are an easy mark for online sales, you use retail therapy as a mood stabilizer, and it results in unconscious, not pre-thought out accumulation and acquisition. You can see where, depending on how much of that there is, that can create a problem pretty quickly. Financially, you only stabilize your mood. You're not solving the problem. You're not even putting a dent on the path to solve the problem when you do that. You're actually creating a future problem. So I really ask you to consider that if what you're looking at isn't a 10 on a scale of 1 to 10, go home and think about it, all right? Tomorrow there might be something just as good or just as available or even better. So watch that trigger buying, watch using acquiring and retail therapy. And my gosh, you can now get it delivered to your door within 24 hours. How much better does it get than that? All right. The motto is live forward. Live forward. Don't drag the past with you. Leave room for your future. If you want a future, if you want things to improve and get better for you, you've got to live today forward. Okay, so in this saving inventory, there are questions also about the next stage on that continuum. So maybe acquisition isn't a problem. Many people who end up in pretty significant hoarding situations don't actually have a problem with acquisition. They're not massive acquirers. But all that means is that somewhere else along that continuum, they encounter the difficulty, okay, that causes the buildup. So the next stop is saving. Are you someone who, whatever you acquire, you feel a compelling need to save? Because I spent good money on that and I haven't had the value. It turned out not to be the best choice, but not the worst either. And I am the price I got that at, I am never, ever going to get it at that again. And so I might as well hold on to it just in case I need it. Saving can also be uncertainty. You know, we were talking just a moment ago about perfectionistic decision making resulting in procrastination. And that is that just in case, that onerous fear of making a mistake. Well, I don't particularly like it. I don't particularly need it. In fact, I don't need it often enough that it justifies using up the little bit of storage space I have. But I better keep it just in case. It might be a mistake. You know the old adage, the moment I let go of it, within 2 weeks, I'm going to need it. We have some strategies we can describe and discuss later, not today, but in later podcasts, for handling that fear so that you can soften the edges of that self-recrimination, that fear of making mistakes, all right? There are so few mistakes that we can't survive from. They're hardly worth mentioning, and certainly not worrying about and not clogging up our home and the space we need for living today forward. Some people, they don't have a particular need to save. They don't have a particular need to acquire. They acquire like everybody else. They're perfectly prepared to let things go and resolve the buildup. They are prepared to donate. They're prepared to find the right home. They're prepared to recycle, but they make it a massive endeavor. It's got to be just the right home. It's got to be just the right cause. It's got to be just the right time. The problem becomes that we rarely know those homes, those perfect homes. And if you're keeping those things in your environment, I would encourage you to consider that if you just send it out to the universe by donating it, if it's something that service agencies that come by and pick things up will accept, just put it out there and the right person will find it. All right. And the difference between you holding on to it and them having access to it is they actually need it right now. They're looking for it because it does solve a problem. All right. When you look at only 5 to 6% of the general population actually qualifying for hoarding disorder, there is an exponentially higher likelihood that the person picking it up does not have a problem with acquisition or holding on to things. All right. The one cost to you, however, is you don't get to see the expression on their face when you give it to them. You don't get that joy, pleasure, satisfaction moment. But no, it is happening. You just aren't the fly on the wall to see it. Now, I want to put on the table that, again, you can have people who do not excessively acquire. They are prepared to resolve, all right? But if you have an excessive accumulation, the buildup is probably at that third point on the continuum. So the third point on the continuum is the decision making, the resolution. And so this is where it forks off a bit, all right? This becomes a more complicated point to have a difficulty. And so ask yourself, and on the saving inventory, it asks you questions that you're going to be able to uncover that, all right? That's why I want you to really use this as a self-assessment tool. And so one of the points where that breaks down at the decision-making point is, are you just too spent? Are you just too tired? Are you just too stressed? Are you just too unmotivated? Are you just too self-punishing, questioning yourself? Have you emptied yourself in some way that you don't have the time, the energy, or the focus? All right. And so that's where you go back to the 3 goals we've talked about. That's where your fuel comes from. That's where your self-affirmation in realistic little bites comes from. And that's where you gradually, in baby steps, in 15-minute chunks, make the difference in your environment that you can make, because anybody can do anything for 15 minutes. Particularly if you're doing it from a sitting position where it doesn't require mobility or that kind of thing. All right. And so that's one way. If you're just physically, it's the physical work that is the challenge. All right. If it's not the physical work that is the challenge, is it the making decisions? Because people really underestimate how much energy it takes, how much focus, how much confidence it takes to make enough decisions to remedy clutter. Are you afraid of making mistakes? Are you afraid of regret? Do you inadvertently subscribe to the belief that if you just hold on to it because you haven't had your value out of it and you spent good money, are you telling yourself that there's any possibility by doing that the money is going back in the bank? At the point you made the decision to buy it or to acquire it, that's the point at which the resource flew away and it's never coming back. And we have to accept that. All right. You don't keep the value of it because it's like a car. The moment you get it, even if you don't use it, it's not worth what you paid for it the first time. All right. You don't acquire the value of it. Keep the value. And if you don't need that item, if you're not using that item, then ask yourself, where's the value? It's taking up valuable real estate for tomorrow. It's giving you that ease. It's going to take boulders off your shoulders with self-recrimination when you look around and think, oh, man, I wish I could just, oh, it will ease the risk that you're living with by blocking entrances and exits. All right, so you can see where that decision-making process, and then there's one more, and that is, I'm not acquiring too much. I don't feel a compelling need to save it. I have made the decision. How do I get the darn thing gone? Where do I take it? Where do I send it? Who do I get to come and pick it up? That's where I would ask you, all right, get on your phone and call any agency, any organization that starts with, we talked about variables, okay? Your values. Who provides a service to the population that you have a particular understanding and sympathy for? See if they have a method for picking up donations, all right? There will be one. I know that when I do work with my clients at no extra cost, we have a trailer, and I have a big SUV for a good reason, and I take it with me, and we donate it to community secondhand store, a particular community secondhand store in a very poor county in Lanark County, and they are thrilled. They love to see us come every Monday morning, Wednesday morning, and Friday morning. It's like Christmas all over because people are generous. If you can help yourself let go of the perfectionistic standards you might be requiring for letting that thing go, and you can just give yourself a break from self-punishment and self-recrimination that you spent good money. The moment it's spent, it's no longer good money. It's stuff. All right, and there's no changing that back. There are very few things, but there are some, I do acknowledge, that are worth trying to sell. All right? One of the things I'd ask you to do, though, is really watch the platform that you're using. There are horror stories that have been validated about things like Craigslist or Kijiji. So if you live alone, all right, don't be alone when the person comes to look at it. And be ready. Whatever price you put, there is a significant possibility they're going to try to undercut you by half. Or they're suddenly not going to have the money with them. All right? So think long and hard about selling. Okay. Now, have you, after that discussion, have you figured out where you're more susceptible along those 3 points on that continuum? Acquiring, saving, discarding. The only thing, depending on where you are having difficulty, the only thing that changes is the life cycle of your buildup. If you don't have a massive acquiring problem, it's going to take longer, but it's still going to happen. If you have a bottleneck at saving, if you're going to chide yourself for all the things we've already talked about, all right, that's as far as it's going to get, most of it, all right? And when you're looking at how much you are letting go of, also look at that in relationship to being safe and healthy, how much is still left? What percentage is that? All right. It's a good thing to meet the need to give yourself a peaceful, safe place to live. That's a good need. That's worth doing. All right. But try not to minimize what you're capable of in making room for your future by saying, I let so much stuff go. It doesn't matter that I still have pathways and I still can't use spaces in my home. I'll be satisfied with that. All right. I don't want you to punish yourself, but there is that middle ground of, and there will be more to do. All right. So if you don't have a problem with saving, if you're prepared to recycle, regift, sell if necessary, donate, and discard where it's appropriate to do that, is decision making. Is that where it breaks down? All right. And if it is, then I want you to send me emails, and we can problem solve strategies at each one of those. But decision making and letting things go is that final step, and it can be a stumbling block. So I'm hoping this discussion has helped you kind of fine tune a bit or shine the light on where on those that continuum you're experiencing the difficulty. So here's what I want to ask you. After we've done this discussion, later on, as you are looking at the saving inventory, ask yourself these questions, and I will read them very slowly, okay? First of all, where on the continuum is your bottleneck? And you're not worse if it happens to be at 2 places. You're not even worse if it happens to be at 3. Knowledge is power. So next, does procrastination actually protect you? Can you see how it is a self-protection method? It's a strategy, unconscious, not deliberate usually, but is it protecting you? So let's stop for a second. I want you to feel safe and protected. I want you to do that, all right? But at the same time, I want you to be just a little brave about saying, what would happen if I didn't let that bottleneck happen? If I ran an experiment and I tried to let something go that isn't a number 1, 2, 3. It's not one of your 1, 2, 3s, okay? It's a 7, 8, 9, 10. If I let that go and I saw how much regret I actually lived with. And then I emailed Elaine and I asked her if we could do a podcast session on regret and how to avoid it. Because ultimately, I want you to make I can live with it decisions. All right? But sometimes we have to be a little brave and try a few experiments about trying the other side of the coin and seeing, was it an imaginary fear or was it an overwhelming fear and regret? Just don't pick your 1, 2, 3s. You don't have anything to prove in that respect. So if you have a sense that it does protect you, do you have any inkling, any awareness of how it protects you? What is it protecting you from? Is it protecting you from any one of those variables? Chances are it is. Is it protecting you from negative feelings? All right, feelings of deprivation. What would happen? Do you have a history of severe deprivation? Is that being triggered? It's not actually deprivation today, but it's that fear, that hanging on fear of deprivation. Are there other feelings? Are you an emotional, sentimental saver? And are you afraid that if you let go of things from the past, that somehow you're losing something? Is it protecting you from fear? Did you have hopes? You bought that crafting. I hear this all the time in crafting. That I had a whole, I could see it. It was a project and I wanted to do it. I even knew how to do it. I started to acquire the product for it and it's just sitting there and I haven't gotten to it. So if you didn't pick your project material for one of your 1, 2, 3 projects, your biggies, okay? No, you haven't gotten to it yet, but you're not prepared to give up on the dream of doing it. What would happen if you ran a little experiment with some of your 7, 8, 9, 10 projects? Some of those materials, just as a test run on, really, is this imaginarily overwhelming? Or even if it is a negative feeling, how long does it last? Do I remember it the next morning? And let me tell you what most often happens. That if you suffer from easy regret, okay, buyer's regret or letting go regret. If that is your thing, then you probably will feel regret, all right, in the moment. And it could even be intense, all right? It's worth trying anyway with some of your 7, 8, 9, 10s. And then the next day, you realize you've gone 6 hours and you haven't really even thought of it. And then you have a little stab of regret. Oh, all right. And then the next day, there's a little less. And by the end of an individual period of time to you, you realize, you know what, that wasn't overwhelming actually. And later on, you're thinking to yourself, I let go of a lot of stuff and I can probably think of 1 or 2 things that I still occasionally think about. I don't feel that stab. It does dissipate. Have faith in yourself. All right, you've overcome other things. This probably won't be the hardest. So where does the fear come from? Is it a dream, for instance? You know that dream, I had a dream. Were you taught to have a dream? Is it your dream or somebody else's dream? Memories are also one of the variables. And the great thing about memories, folks, is even if this is a symbol of something that you have a wonderful memory about, the memory isn't in the thing. That's why it's so important to realize that. Because if this is a tangible object, sooner or later something's going to happen to it. All right, the clock is ticking on all tangible things we have. All right, the memory's in you. Don't give the meaning and the power away to the thing. It only has the value of the meaning you give it in and of itself. There are exceptionally few things. You know, a Monet, a Van Gogh, something else, that's a different category. We're not talking about those kinds of things. And do you feel that fear automatically? Is it your go-to place? Have you trained yourself and reinforced yourself to be a fearful individual? I'm not suggesting you be a Pollyanna and go to the other extreme. What would it feel like to just let that fear go? Just don't let it build. Just let it go. And stay neutral. Just stay neutral. All right, my life is not in jeopardy. Self-talk is really useful. My life is not in jeopardy. My future is not in jeopardy. If I close my eyes and I think of those memories, I can still think of them. And here's the great thing. That thing that you're holding on to as a symbol, and you've got a lot of symbols perhaps, okay, it's something you do, your memory will be triggered by something else. Because if it was worth remembering, it's a very complex experience that you had. All right? And just have faith in yourself that you have the power And do you still need to feel that fear? What purpose does it give you? Would you let yourself enjoy or acknowledge success and contentment? Would you let yourself do that? Okay. If something was pretty darn good, or for whatever value it had in your life, good enough. If it was short of perfection, and who is the tyrant that is demanding that? Where did you learn that? You didn't come up with that one on your own as a little munchkin. All right, you picked that up already. Is it still valid today? Do you apply it to everything? All right, there probably are 6 good ways to do anything. And could you fear success? And that's why that feeling of contentment and self-acknowledgement and normal success eludes you, because you cut it off at the pass with fear. You don't walk the ground where your success will happen. All right? If you are working hard enough that you show up here, even a good number of times, you deserve success. Right? This is hard work to look into yourself. There is nothing that you can't learn to do. All right? And with practice and patience, you're going to be just fine. Whatever you dream of is going to be good enough. Now, I am not a spring chicken, all right? And I have my, getting old is a pain problems too. But I have a dream that one day, going to have to be in the next few years, I am going to trek into the jungle, and I am going to sit with gorillas. Yes. Now, my daughter has explained to me she's not the slightest bit interested, so she won't be along. But I have a son who's keeping track of me and saying, Mom, is that what you want to do? Yeah, that was a great choice, because that's going to be a gorilla moment. That makes that gorilla moment possible. And I've got a niece who has said she'll carry me in on her back if she has to. But if I just put myself in the position of making choices that give me that success. And that, to me, is a big goal. All right. What's your big goal? What are your bucket list items? Do you even dare to hope and plan and baby step work toward your bucket list goals? So let's check in on danger signs, okay? So these should be an alert to you that you may in fact have fear of success. Do you sometimes slow down on a task or a project when it's going well? That's a problem. That's a danger sign. Do you shy away or get embarrassed from acknowledging yourself or being recognized by others when you get a compliment for doing something well? What do you need to do to develop a higher tolerance for truthful acknowledgement and being at peace, accepting it? Thank you. All right? Even if your ears are beet red, take a deep breath. Just say thank you and say to yourself, there is some good possibility that's true. The third thing, do you counterbalance success in one area by stopping short of success and completion in another? Do you leave projects undone? By allowing yourself to get distracted, by making other things randomly and suddenly the new priority, by the bright and shiny thing. All right. You deserve success. And success generally, little bites of it along the way, success generally belongs to completion. All right. Is there a conflict inside? When you start to move forward, you start to do well, it's starting to come together. Do you ever feel a conflict inside? That the downside, oh, this could be, there's another side to it. A downside to success, despite the truth that you do want to do well. Does your mood shift? Do you let your mood shift? Do you just go with the flow when your mood shifts, or do you fight it? Do you rethink your plan? All right. Do you lose focus? Do you allow yourself to lose focus? Do you let other things intrude and claim your time, your energy? Or do you lose confidence that you're on the path, like there's only one path to successful completion? Do you fear taking calculated risks? Operative word there is calculated, all right? So that you limit your curiosity, you limit your energy and willingness to try new challenges. Do you do that? Is there a family history or tradition that keeps you in a particular box? Are you living gender roles and rules, even though there are many others that don't feel the need to, and they don't hurt anybody? They don't hurt themselves. It can be done. If they limit you, if these gender roles, traditions, family stories that are very subtle about, this is the kind of people we are, okay, limit you, why do you let them? Your family is made up of members, many generations of members, none of whom are you. You share history, but it's not your history. Your history is still out in front of you, all right, to be completed. What would happen if you just decided to live forward? If you didn't accept those gender roles, would you still have a place to belong? Would it cost you your belonging? Would it cost you your confidence and your right to be part of your tribe? All right? Does your script or a family role mean you have to be a certain way? Or you have to be not enough? You won't be enough like your family to belong? You'll become, or you fear being made an outsider, or they'd worry about you? Would you receive criticism, ridicule, resentment for your success? Do you fear statements, and do you say them, do you override them, voice over yourself? Who does he or she think they are? All right, that is a spiteful statement, and you want to watch and look long and hard at anybody who says that kind of thing to you, because they're trying to keep you down to the level they fear they're at, because they feel incapable. They feel incompetent, even though they may be arrogant, they may brag, they may name drop, they may do all kinds of things. Anybody who uses that kind of statement is somebody you want to keep your eye on. And you probably, if you're here today trying to find a path forward, you probably don't share as much with them as you think you do. And maybe you're paying too high a price. So, common reasons for avoiding success. It demands too much time, too much energy, too much effort, too much money. It might compromise or challenge my relationships. What would I do then? because those relationships can't grow and thrive and change? Really? The other people in those relationships are changing. The inevitability of change, you are going to change. Those relationships have to change anyway. Why not change positively? Why not deliberately talk about change so it feels safer to hold back on and make excuses and find, like, really believe our excuses for why there isn't enough time? Break the job down longer. Make the baby steps smaller. Time is not an issue. The effort. Oh, I've got other obligations. You do probably have other obligations, but you have an obligation to yourself too, as the thank you for the gift of life. I don't have enough money. Break it down. Maybe it doesn't have to cost as much. Maybe you don't have to do the perfect version of it that, is like Cadillac spending. Oh, maybe I'd have to change my role or my relationship. They're going to change anyway, all right? And that success would mean. Need to complete is another. So you choose not to put your best effort into completing in case you do succeed, and then more is required of you. So you say, I'll try, but I'm good either way. I give myself an out, all right, in case I want to take it. In case it gets too challenging. I'm not on familiar turf. I don't know with 100% confidence where the next step forward is. All right? Have faith in yourself. You're not alone. Procrastination can be a way to lower your odds of facing this challenging dilemma. Success is risky. Someone always gets hurt. That's what you believe. I don't want to be the cause of someone getting hurt. I feel sorry for them, the loser. So I don't really try my best because I don't want to seem to show them up. Or I might win, but then the others might retaliate against me. They might shun me. And then I'd be all alone and isolated and possibly lose something I have now that I enjoy, like fitting in or friends. Sometimes we need to sit back and we need to reassess whether some of the people who call themselves friends actually, when they were friends, we were slightly different people. And now, moving forward, we have less in common. Sometimes what happens is we move away from those people. We don't abandon them, we don't reject them, but we move away from them. All right, well, we take our path. And quite often, all right, they come back. Our circles reconnect with one another. I think I mentioned to you close to Christmas, a girlfriend of mine who was a best friend from age 2. We were at each other's weddings, and we haven't seen each other in 30 years, 40 years. And her sister saw something in the paper about me, and she called my friend, who had apparently just moved not more than half an hour away from me. And she called me, and we're back together again, and it's like old times. So don't fear losing people in your life. They're never, if they are true friends, they're never really gone. They're just maybe on their path too. All right. I enjoy fitting in. If I succeed, I might be accused of being conceited. Heaven forbid. All right? Because people use those kinds of pejorative words doesn't make them true. You know whether you're conceited or not. Do you really think you're worth more than everybody else or anybody else? Because if you don't, if you're just claiming your own honest space, that's not conceit. That's home. Or they might get aggressive. They might think of you as aggressive or ambitious. And if you're a woman, we all know that is the biggie, right? You're not allowed to be ambitious. Who do you think keeps this world spinning? Procrastination can be an expression of anxiety and guilt about moving beyond the group that we love. Maybe I'm not worried about the other guy getting hurt. Maybe I'm just acknowledging to myself that I could get hurt. Someone always resents the winner. Someone will gun for me. This is in jobs or in education, and not give me a chance because they're spiteful or they're aggressive. I hate conflict. I will avoid conflict at all costs. Do you know how many times I hear people say that and they suffer for it? Conflict also has been given a bad name. Conflict is not fighting. I don't want to leave anyone behind. Even if I succeed, what then? I'm afraid that there's something wrong with me. Heaven forbid I succeed, because fundamentally I think that I'm broken. All right. And if I succeed, all I'm doing is creating the light to shine on me, and I won't be able to hide it anymore. I don't deserve success. I haven't been good enough. I've done things that were wrong, and I've not met my obligations well. Or I deserve to have to pay for my failures. I don't know how to assert my right to my own life. All right. Who do I think I am anyway? I've never been lucky. If I didn't have bad luck, I'd have no luck at all. Can you incorporate being successful into your identity? All right. Do you actually become a different person, or do you just add more tools to your tool belt? Do you avoid hope because you don't dare to? Is procrastination keeping you in your perceived identity? Is it keeping that perceived identity intact? If I turn out to be a real success, will I have to hide it to avoid the downside of success? No, you'll learn to adapt. The envy of others, being able to relate to the problems. Will I even be able to relate to other people who have problems? And if I can't, will I be alone? Success doesn't come immediately, people. All right? You will have time to resolve the anxieties. You feel right now thinking about challenges that seem bigger than you have the ability to make come true. But you dare to dream. And you will make those adjustments. There will be people just like you who walk before you, who can give you advice, can give you guidance, can help you right things when you put a foot wrong. Like in your whole life, you've never put a foot wrong. Why is it any different being successful, making dreams and plans come true? Okay. And the one thing in life that will not alter, all right, is that change is probably one of the only constants in life. It's going to happen anyway. Why not set goals that gradually move you forward? You will learn to tolerate the risks along the way. You'll learn to spot them ahead of time and avoid them too. And you will develop ways to remain true to yourself. You know who you are. That's not going to change. No matter how many successes that with clutter, with hoarding, with work, with education, with children, with yourself, all right? You remain true to yourself and to the others who are important to you, all right? Life requires adaptation, though. All right? Because change happens, because change is a constant, our life anyway, in any case, requires adaptation. Adapt moving forward. All right? Because otherwise you'll be adapting to somebody else's reality, somebody else's wishes, somebody else's dreams, and they won't be yours, and you may not be as well equipped. Don't let fear get in the way. And all the other variables, feelings, fears, hopes, memories, dreams, doubts, pressures. Take a little bite-sized chunk of them, all right, and adapt to them. Make them, grind them down and make them work for you. So why not adapt to forward? Because nothing is going to remain the same. And if you aren't adapting to change, you will be actually moving backwards. So I would like you to seriously consider, all right, adopting the motto, live forward. Whatever happened yesterday, if it isn't part of the foundation of today moving forward, it's okay to just leave it behind you. All right? You don't lose it. It's still behind you. Now let's look at some of those questions in the last, say, 5 or 10 minutes we have. Okay. All right. What is the motto again? The motto is live forward. Thank you, Maureen. Maureen says, wow, I like that point about spending good money on things. I tried to decide whether an item owes me anything. Have I had all of the joy use out of this thing that I intended to get when I bought it? That's a good way, in some ways, to come about it, Meredith. Yeah, Meredith. Here's what the problem can be, though, okay? And if you've got a lot of buildup, yes, if you bought something to fulfill a dream or to add something to your life, I would encourage you to also add another concept. And the other concept might be something like, it's a thing. I am the purchaser of it. I'm the one who decides if that owes me anything. All right? It's a thing. How does it fit in my life today? And what does it give me? What does it add positively to my life today that it fits in? It has a place. And if it doesn't have enough need, if it doesn't meet enough of my needs, if it doesn't work well enough, then I'm going to free that space. And I will either put something else in its place and use it instead, or I will wait for the thing that is me today moving forward. Because that check and balance system of its worth and have I had enough use of it, if you're asking yourself that question, you may already know the answer. All right? You may be trying to squeeze the juice out of the lemon. But at a certain point, that lemon's done. All right? It doesn't fit you today moving forward. All right. You'll love it. Did you? Lynn. Oh my goodness. Lynn actually walked, I guess, in and saw the gorillas. I did with orangutans in Indonesia. pretty much the same thing, I guess. Oh, that's great. We'll have to talk. That's great. And so someone else says, I run out of energy. So how do you evaluate your energy level? My mind is bigger than my tank of energy. I understand that. I do understand. And that's a truth. Okay. Um, so how do you evaluate your energy level? I believe that where something is important enough to do, or important enough to prove to you that you can do it, and you've set it as a goal, 15 minutes of picking up and clutter and putting things away and sorting and that kind of thing, okay? I believe that most people, almost everybody probably, can do 15 minutes, even if they're not having their best day, even if they're not having a terribly good day. How do you gauge your energy? So that speaks to a different question, though. You don't have anything to prove. All right? You don't have anything to prove to yourself. When you start something and you do it for 15 minutes and you're pushing yourself to that, you're looking at the clock, you're pushing yourself, there's your answer. Be guided by your own reactions. All right? And when you do sit down, trust yourself, for heaven's sakes. You don't have to prove anything to anybody. Sit down and rest. Sit down and do something that replenishes you. Joy, fun, and play. And it's around you. This morning, I woke up to bird song. Woo! We have the air conditioning on at home, but where I am, I opened the window and I opened up to bird song. And it's little, but my heart just went, oh, listen to them. Listen to them. It could be, last night I was standing on a balcony and I looked out and I thought I saw the ring of the plume from Niagara Falls. And I thought, wow. And in the darkness, it was just a little burst of joy. It's around you. All right. So I want to ask you a question. What is it about your approach with yourself that you don't trust yourself to say, I'm finished? Or I have a little bit more energy, okay, in the tank. So, but I know what it took to do this last 15 minutes. It's not that much energy. So I'm not going to start that 15 minutes. I want you to do more work on trusting yourself. All right? Let me have a look here. It's a long trip to Africa, so go as soon as you can and enjoy your dream. Oh, somebody else went. I went in 2018 and didn't see the gorillas, but it was fabulous to see the elephants, giraffes, zebras, and in their natural habitat. I'm going for gorillas. I'm going to leave the elephant. Well, I do like elephants, giraffes, and the wildlife. I'm going to leave that. I just want to sit peacefully and watch them interact. So to everyone, this is Nita. How do I let go of feeling like there's only one path, one way, the perfect path for me? This is regarding career, not a job, my own consulting writing business. Who taught you that there was only one path? Who taught you that you only had one talent? You did not come up with that one on your own. All right. So I want your homework this week, and you can send me an email if you want. Okay. If you can drill down on it a bit, Nita. I want you to ask yourself, sit down and listen to the committee. Were you here when we talked about the committee in your head, and you go in and you're trying to make a decision, and suddenly all these groups are represented who are, voices of important aspects or people or, points of view or whatever, and they're all talking. I want you to just don't quiet them down this week. I want you to name them. All right? I want you to name some of them and what they're saying. And then I want you to sit back and listen to your own voice in that question. And I want you to ask yourself, did I absorb that? What is the evidence that that's true, that this is the perfect job? You might be really good at it, and it might be that you get a lot of affirmation, or you get a lot of business because you have a skill. Do you get the joy from it? Is there enough joy in it? Will you let yourself engage that skill in a more creative way? That I want to come back to that. Okay, so can you do that homework? And if you're willing, it doesn't have to be really personal. You could ask a question in the next podcast, and make it private. I'll recognize the question and we can pick it up if you want more personal information. I do have to just remember to say, though, next week is July 1st. It's the Canadian national holiday. And so we will not have, I would show up. Okay, but I can't ask the people who helped me put this podcast on to give up theirs. They have families and other things, other plans. So next week, no group, but we will see you the week following on the Wednesday from 11 till 12. Let's just see if we've got more here. I think I'm scared. Maureen, I think I'm squeezing a lot of lemons. Ha ha. We'll have to think more about this. Okay. PTC, such wonderful questions and examples. What exciting dreams and realities you have all had. Such lovely classmates. I dare say we will all graduate on a day and time that's right for us, but thank God. Oh, thank you. I thought that was a question. Thank God for Elaine's support right now. You're very, very welcome. I feel privileged to be able to share something that my clients have been generous and brave enough to teach me, okay, over the last 19 years. To everyone, that's difficult. That I sometimes cannot stop myself once I'm on a roll. So are you talking about stopping working? Like when you start a project, you can't make yourself stop? And then the acid test. Okay, the acid test is when you do stop, at some point you have to stop, clearly you're here. How do you feel? Do you feel that you have emptied yourself? You feel wiped? Because if you feel that you've emptied yourself and you may be on a high, all right? How do you feel the next day? How do you feel later that day? How do you feel the next time you have to think, I need to go back and I need to do more work on that. I want to do that and I need to do that. Do you ever stop and talk yourself out of it because you don't have enough steam in the tank? All right? Respect your limits and save some time and space and energy for joy, fun, and play, and reminding yourself of ways to be a learning, growing, developing human being. I find I set my goals too high and then have to reassess my tank when I run out. You're sort of setting yourself up for failure there, though, because my concern there is that you'll never be satisfied. And what about breaking that goal up into chunks? What about breaking it up into real, true, write them out, remind yourself, post them somewhere, be accountable to external reminders. Today, I am doing this piece of it and no more. All right. And that way you always end on a high. You're still going to get there. Unless we're talking about fire safety, health safety, the roof's going to fall in, you're going to trip over something, it's a fire hazard. Okay. Your goals need to be able to meet our goals, and we need to leave something else in us to enjoy the rest of the day and the rest of our life. I think I understand now that it's the perfectionist that feels that yes, I cannot stop until everything is done for that day. Thank you. And Leanne, to everyone, and Leanne, sit down and let the committee convene and see who are around that table and see what your relationship was to them. And because it could be a positive relationship, you want to be just like them. But then you have to ask yourself, this is your life. How's that working for you? All right. How is that working for you? Because there may come a time when you'll judge yourself harshly because life will intervene and you won't have the stamina. All right. It's better to say what you mean to yourself and do what you mean to do. All right. I still feel so overwhelmed and just too big for me, and I've dug a big hole. I do get that. Just keep coming back. Just keep coming back. That sense of overwhelmed is the thing that's defeating you. All right. The hole is not too big, or you wouldn't be here. You'd be hiding from it. You wouldn't even be considering, all right, some of the things we're talking about, and you sure wouldn't have left a message. All right. So the reality is not too big for you. It's that state of being overwhelmed that has taken you out of the game and that's defeating you. Let's work on that. And let's keep the rest of your environment safe enough that you don't have to pay a price you shouldn't have to pay. Enjoy Canada Day, everyone. Thank you for your time and your wisdom. So that's a real insight. I sometimes get tired and fail thoughts before I start. Yeah. Resolve 15 minutes starts next 2 weeks. I'll send questions. Woot woot. Okay. Do I have anybody else here? How do I do this? Not on my own. I'm not on my own computer. Where do I go down there? Just to see whether there's anything below. I'm at the bottom. Okay, everybody, we're 10 minutes late. Starting. Have a wonderful Wednesday. Have a wonderful week. Have a wonderful 2 weeks, in fact. And I will see you, whatever it is, the Wednesday after Canada Day, 11 till 12. Okay? Take care, everybody. Make it a good one.
Bye, Elaine. Thank you. Safe travels.
Oh, thank you.
Bye, everybody.